Happy New Year, home theater nerds. Welcome to Brightside Home Theater. Video podcast, I guess. This is my second one. We're going to do the top 10 Blu-Rays from 2020 as I see them. I see them a little differently than other people do. I was asked by Jeff from HD Report. You can check him out at hd/report.com, and you can check him out on Twitter at HD Report. And he asked me back in November if I'd like to collaborate on a list and to come up with the best discs from 2020. And I said, yeah, of course. So what happened is we ended up having this discussion of he analyzes movies a little differently than I do. He breaks them down, to the bit rates and everything and the quality of the movie and edge enhancement and all that. And I deal more with how it is in here. How do you experience it as the movie is washing over you? So we put our list together. He published what we came up with. We gave each movie that we ranked a score, and then he published the top 10 list. And you can check that out at hd/report.com. Check that out. It's pretty cool. But what it did do is it sparked a great discussion between us because we, quote, argued about different movies, and I'll get to a couple of those in a minute as we go through the list. But we argued back and forth about a couple of things. Why did you like this one? Why did you like that one? And it was a lot of fun. So I thought, when I started this, I didn't think I was going to be doing YouTube videos, but I put out my top 5 from the year that I reviewed, and that's over on the podcast. So here on the video, I'm going to give you the top 10 Blu-rays from the year as I see them, as the experiences wash over you. These are the top 10. But I have 3 honorable mentions to start. First up is Akira in 4K. I love the picture. The colors were very vibrant. Whether I got the HDR or not, the picture and the sound were so good. But I just always have a hard time taking an animated movie and comparing it to all of these other movies where the resolution looks so much better and the detail can be so much better as opposed to a drawing. I'm an artist. There was a time I wanted to get into animation. I'm not putting it down. The fact that it even made my honorable mentions, to me, is a big testament to the movie. So that's what I have as my first honorable mention, Akira in 4K. Ford v Ferrari in 4K. This movie is an absolutely epic film. I love the movie. I love the story. I love the acting. I love the cinematography. I love the action. The picture was really good. The sound was so good. The action that you got, it just didn't have enough of that action to put it into this room in the top 10. It was so good, but it just didn't have the same as when we get to the top 10. So that's why it's an honorable mention as far as that goes. If you listen to my podcast about it, I was a little disappointed when I first saw the movie. It wasn't as action-y. It's more of a drama. And for a drama to even make honorable mentions, that's a good disc. Gemini Man in 4K. This is an action movie. And at 60 frames per second, it is a must-see in your theater. It is so good. It is such an experience. So much so that it irritates some people. You get that, quote, soap opera effect. I really enjoyed it. I've watched it multiple times. Definitely need to experience this at least once. It was so good, it almost cracked the top 10, but I really can't take anything out of the top 10 and put this in, so it's right on the edge. Let's get to the top 10. Number 10, Jaws in 4K from 1975. This movie has never looked or sounded this good. We'll start with the sound. The sound in this movie, it really relies on the absence of sound at times or the quieter moments, to jump at you, where's the shark? Where is this? And it really preys on that. That score, tremendous in Atmos. The picture, well, you can see a shark's eye drawn on with a Sharpie. The picture is so good. The beach scenes, the colors they pop, the ocean, the clarity, and everything throughout this movie. For a movie from 1975, never thought it could look this good. I didn't get the opportunity to see this in the theaters when I was a kid. So this is the best I've ever seen it, and it looks unreal. So that's my number 10. Number 9, Invisible Man in 4K. The sound in this movie, it opens with those waves crashing over you and the bass, and then you go into you get inside the building in the opening scenes. I don't want to do spoilers or anything, but there's a reverb that just vibrates through your room. And then just the nature of this movie is about an invisible man, and you don't know where he's going to come from. But you'll be like this in your room looking around at the speakers, because they use the ambient sound so well to set that tension. There's a sound over here, there's a sound there, and it just grabs you. And it's such a great movie to experience in 4K with that Atmos track. Highly, highly recommend this movie. That's why I have it at number 9. Number 8, Dr. Sleep in 4K. How do you have a Shining movie a Shining sequel, and it's this good? Never thought you could have it. The movie itself, I thought, was tremendous as a sequel. But at the heart of this movie is a heartbeat. There is a bass throughout this movie that's a boom, 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 and it ramps up at different times, gets faster at different times. If you listen to my podcast where I break it down, I'll give you some timestamps on where it really ramps up. It is so good. It is such an experience that to watch this on a regular TV with regular sound, even just a sound bar, if you're not getting your subwoofers, if you have lucky enough to have 2 of them going, to feel this movie is such a treat. Really should check this movie out. Really enjoyed that. That's why I have that one at number 8. Number 7, 300 in 4K. It's for the picture. The sound is great. I loved the sound in this movie, but I just want to talk about the picture. Zack Snyder, the master of that, monochromatic scene, or setting the tone, using different color palettes throughout this movie. It was unreal. I cannot wait for the Snyder Cut. And all I kept thinking through this, it looked so good. It was so sharp. And the dark scenes and the details, the way they rendered this in 4K looked so good. And it really shows you how good his movies can be when he's allowed to deliver exactly what he wants to deliver. And I have very high hopes for the Snyder Cut. And I am the bright side, so I'm probably going to love the Snyder Cut too. So, sorry, warning ahead if you hate it. Number 6, 1917 in 4K. The single shot approach of this movie, it should be, a great movie anyways. The way they shot this movie from beginning to end feels like a single shot, and to go through this movie and listen to some of the special features or the audio commentary, and you'll get to hear where some of the slices, some of the blends were made, and they're very creatively done. But as far as cinema experience, the picture was beautiful. The landscapes, it was like you were there. You could reach into your screen. The sound in that scene, there's one particular Atmos scene where the overheads really take effect. They're in a bunker, they accidentally hit a tripwire, and all the place caves in on them. And the aftermath of that, and hearing your walls creak, just tremendous, awesome movie from beginning to end, but it has some great cinematic theater experiences for you that it definitely should be owned, never mind experienced. Number 5, Game of Thrones complete series. I haven't watched this entire thing beginning to end, but I did watch the entire thing in Blu-ray with the Atmos track. The Atmos track is so much better than the regular, what you got on streaming. But then when the 4K set came out and you could see I just jumped from different scenes, different seasons, and saw the difference that you experience. It's like watching the entire series over again. And I experienced this series for the first time, 1 through 7 for the first time with the box set of the Blu-ray. So I got the Atmos track. Season 8, I experienced streaming. Anybody that's saying streaming is just as good and what's the difference? Obviously, they're not us. They're not home theater fans. They don't understand physical media and how good it can be. And own this set and show people, because you can pull up Game of Thrones on HBO Max, and probably very soon you'll be able to pull it up in 4K on HBO Max in Atmos. And compare that to these discs, not even close. Like I said, my wife and I have already experienced this movie in Atmos in 1080p, and we loved it. And this is like experiencing it all over again. The clarity is so good. Number 4, Joker in 4K. Between the dialogue and that score, the score was just so haunting throughout this movie. It set such a tone. And then the colors, let's do the picture. The colors on this were so good. And from his vest, the costumes, if you will, and the way everybody was dressed, the time period, it had an 80s feel to it just by the tone of the pictures. And that's all comes through in the 4K. And the sound, the sound in this movie, the way there's an end scene here where the TV, he's looking at all the TV screens and all the different voices, and the sound starts swirling around your room. It's so good. It's such an engrossing movie. I loved this in the theater, and then I loved even more at home. It's in your intimate environment of a home theater, it's so much better. And that's why I have it at number 4. I must own, must see multiple times. Great movie. Number 3 is going to come as a surprise to my longtime listeners, as I've only been around for a year now. Star Wars number 4. And the reason it's number 4, episode 4, it's number 3, episode 4, A New Hope in 4K. The reason it's a surprise is because people probably think I'm going to have this as number 1, but I couldn't put it up there. The next 2 are just so good. But after 40 years, seeing this in the theater, seeing it on VHS, it's what we got here from Tatooine looking so good and so clear that years in the past, it was so grainy and so much noise on Tatooine. It was so bright. It didn't look... It looked good at the time. That was the best we got as each edition progressed. But now to see this like it is now, I'll probably watch this movie multiple times, more than every other movie on the list. It's never looked better, but it had to go number 3 because number 2, we have Tenet in 4K. And this movie, you need to see it multiple times just to understand it. And for those of you I got it the first time. No, you didn't. You couldn't have, because you didn't know how it was going to end the first time you saw it. And if you're saying that and you haven't seen it a second time, go back and watch it, because when you watch it a second time in 4K, there's little things that, I don't want to spoil it, but there's little things that pop out. And with the 4K and the HDR, the way they pop off the screen, you're going to be like, how did I not notice that? Well, you didn't get the relevance at the time. That's the picture. Picture was really good. Excellent. Not really good. It was excellent. And the 5.1 audio track, for me, it ends the debate. The debate was over early before this anyways, with what Christopher Nolan has done with Inception and the Dark Knight trilogies and Dunkirk. And now we have 4K, yet another 5.1 disc that really you can't say is worse. It can't be better in Atmos. What more would you get? Your room is full. Your walls are vibrating. The sound was incredible. I doubt, and I know you can't do better than this. All right, enough on that, because I've had plenty of rants on 5.1 versus Atmos. I love Atmos, by the way, if this is the first time you're hearing me. I love Atmos. All right, let's get to number 1. My number 1 is Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit trilogy, because Peter Jackson put these together for a reason. He distributed them they were released as 2 different sets at the same time, because they were remastered to become one 6-movie group. And that's how I see them. And that was our biggest contention, Jeff and I, over at HD Report. We went back and forth. He's like, could you put one here? Yeah, I like Lord of the Rings better than I like The Hobbit as movies. But then why aren't we listing out, and this is what I said to Jeff, why aren't we picking our favorite Lord of the Rings movie like I did with Star Wars Episode 4? Why aren't we ranking those? Because the sets are the sets. And for me, it's what goes on in here. That's how I'm ranking movies. The experience. And the experience you get from each and every one of these 6 movies is the top notch experience. You cannot get better right now, and for a while I will be comparing everything to these movies, because if James Cameron comes out with True Lies or The Abyss and it doesn't match up to these movies, I'm going to be saying, you only have one movie to do. Why can't they look as good as these 6 do? 6 movies, this pristine, with this kind of sound. They beat out every movie that came out this year, including Tenet, which has this year's technology. I'm going to be comparing these 6 movies are going to be compared to anything that comes out in the future for quite some time. It's going to be a while before something comes out that I think looks better and sounds better and takes advantage of your room more than these movies did. That's why I have Lord of the Rings, no doubt about it, and the Hobbit trilogies at number 1 for 2020. That's the list. That's the best I can do. Hopefully you guys liked. If you don't agree with me, which you probably don't, that's great. Hit me up on Twitter at BrightSideHT, or you can email me at brightside@gmail.com, or you can go and check out my podcast. Completely different list there. I review all the other movies that I reviewed this year. You can check that out at brightsidehometheater.com, and the podcasts are there. There's a link to all the podcast providers. And here, please, speaking of subscribe, please subscribe to this channel. If you enjoyed what this was, or you enjoyed last week's, where I give a tour of the room, check it out. But hit subscribe. I'd really appreciate it. That would be great. And hey, everybody, have a great new year. Have a great week. I'll be back next week on the podcast. Maybe I'll be back with a video as well. We'll see. But either way, have some fun. Happy New Year. And go push play.